I'm muting everything. Mike, we're good. All right, intro. Yo, welcome, folks. This is Playmakers with TTaogaming tonight, and my guest is the wonderful Aerokn1ght.
Hello, everybody.
And we're gonna be having some fun tonight. We're gonna be talking about a few fun, interesting topics. Specifically, Aerokn1ght brought us some topics about like vertical passing and adjusting jousts. So hopefully, we'll get some clips that are related to that, so that we can talk a bit about it. But anyways, welcome, folks. Happy to see everybody here hanging out with us. Beyond that, let's just sort of dig into it. Why don't we let's do more of an intro actually for Aerokn1ght. Aerokn1ght, welcome. What do you want to say to the folks, to the people, man?
Hi, I'm Aerokn1ght. I'm here to talk about whatever.
Cool, man. Cool,
Any
man.
questions you have?
100%. We got a few interesting questions. Sort of like our basic questions. But today for our show, I really want to dig into more of the players themselves. I want to learn more a bit about Aerokn1ght. Like what are you about? I know you were talking about like aerospace of it, so we'll talk about that in just a second. Beyond that, I think we got folks are going to be trickling in over the next like 5-10 minutes, I believe, and then we'll get more folks as we do the analysis, and then we'll end off with some community clips by Team Slap versus Ecoholics, which is going to be like high plat diamond sort of gameplay, which is not what we normally do in terms of the community. But for today, Sancheezy from Team Slap was really like, yo, please take a look at our gameplay. Like, I really want to see, like, we want to like get some feedback on it. So I thought it'd be fun for today.
Yeah, sounds like a good time.
Yeah, man.
Should
Well,
be fun.
yeah, everybody welcome. Beyond that, let's sort of let's just get into some like the basic questions. Like learn a bit more about Aerokn1ght. So tell us a bit about your name. You're talking about it before.
Yeah, so when I started initially playing on the original Xbox, my parents got my brother and I an original Xbox, and the like default generated gamer tag it gave me was Dark Knight. And it's been a long time since then. Once I started Echo, I used that name for a little bit. And then I switched to Aerokn1ght because I was getting my undergraduate degree in aerospace engineering. So I added the aero part to it, and it's been that ever since. And then the one is just there because the I was taken. It's that simple.
Cool, man. No, that's really cool. I did not know that.
And I'm currently getting my master's in it. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm teaching calculus to pay my way through my master's degree in aerospace engineering.
Awesome. So in terms of Sputnik's here saying hi. In terms of aerospace, and talking about aerospace and talking about Echo, it's not exactly the same, but there's definitely some pieces there, right? So I'm curious. Yeah, I'm curious. What attracted you to Echo?
So that's actually a really funny story. So I got my CV1 in summer 2018, right before my junior year of undergrad. I did an internship that summer working on a DoD surveillance drone, like full-scale surveillance drone. And I got enough money to buy myself a VR headset. And I wanted the VR headset because I played a lot of Elite Dangerous at that time. And Elite Dangerous is insane in VR. So I got my CV1 specifically to play Elite Dangerous. And I was moving into a house with two other guys, and one of the guys had a girlfriend at the time. And it was a 4-bedroom house. So one of the guys and his girlfriend took the master bedroom together, and then Lonzen was my roommate. If you know of him, he's in Beer League. He's been around the community, currently playing for the Ocho. He was my roommate as well. And then so each of us took one of the bedrooms, and then the fourth bedroom. The agreement was that I could have the fourth bedroom as my VR room if I let my roommates use my headset when I wasn't using it. So like if I wanted it, I would take it, but if I wasn't using it, my roommates could use it.
For sure.
And Lonzen actually discovered Echo. And he played it for like 6-8 months before he finally convinced me to try it. Because every time I would sit down with my headset, I had a throttle and joystick, I had a HOTAS set up, mounted to my chair. I wanted to play Elite Dangerous. Like I would sit down and I'd play Elite Dangerous. And it took him a long time. Actually, that's what my background is. It's a screenshot from Elite Dangerous. That is my my Crate Phantom landed on a planet near the Trifid Nebula, which is a real nebula, if you want to look it up. It is real.
On that note, as I'm looking at your picture, what I notice your shirt is chroma keyed out. I should go and change that.
It does say aerospace, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's fine. But yeah, so my background is actually a screenshot from Elite Dangerous. It's an exploration trip I made out to the Trifid Nebula. But anyway, so I played a lot of Echo, and then eventually he convinced me to pick up Echo. And then that next summer, well actually no, sorry, I got enough money driving a front end loader to buy my headset, and then that next summer I was doing my internship working on the surveillance drone, and then that is the semester when I really started playing Echo. Like I hit level 50 that summer 2019-ish, somewhere in there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think it was summer 2019 because I graduated
Uh-huh.
2020. That's when I hit level 50. That's when I started getting good. Well, not super good, but I then
Yeah.
I founded Space Force
Uh-huh.
with Lonzon, and we
Yep.
got the only level 51 at the time, Ender's Lot, and then also Pyro Polar Bear, who was the second level 51, and then Anime for Life, who is also one of the most prolific pub players if you've ever met him. He's a really fun guy if you want to talk to him ever.
For sure. We
But
will.
so I founded Space Force that with them,
Uh-huh.
and then I played with them for a while. And then after that was VRML season 1.
Yep.
After that ended, I ended up leaving the team. I was looking for a little bit higher level experience.
Sure.
No offense to those guys, I love them all,
Of course.
especially London. He was my roommate for 2 years in college. I best friends with him in high school, debate partners in high school, know him since 7th, 8th grade, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
But I was looking for a high level team, so I left the team, ended up on Wrath,
Yep.
and then finished season 2 in Master Tier. So I mean, I
Yep.
think it worked out to get a little higher level team. But really, what happened there? COVID happened in 2020.
Yeah.
And that was my senior year of college, which is very unfortunate timing. But when I no longer had to go to class or leave my apartment at all, I played Echo for like 60 hours a week for like 3 months straight. And
Yeah.
I mean, turns out that makes you a lot better at the game.
Oh, 100%. 100%. 60 hours grinding. 100%.
Yeah, 60 hours a week for like 3 months took me from bronze to master in a season. So I mean,
Dude,
it
yeah.
happens.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. Now, also in terms of COVID, I do want to mention that that timing also, I was staying home for my work as well. I played a lot of Destiny 2, man. That's when I grinded
Oh,
like
absolutely, yeah.
like Unbroken and all that like PvP like stuff. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, there was a. I think for
Oh, yeah.
for the people who stay at home and play video games, COVID was like, oh my god, I have an extra 20 hours. I don't have to commute.
Yeah,
You know,
it
like,
was dangerous.
just play all
Yeah, it
day.
was bad.
Dude, so okay, talking about Echo and how much we play, like, cause what was it? Even like 2 weeks ago when we had one of our other guests on, they had like, they had like imprints on their head because they were playing so much.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I had that for a while.
yeah, so I'm curious for you, like, how much do you play now? Like, did you get all the bells and whistles for your quests? Or, like,
So
your
I
CD1?
have the
CD1.
I got a free VR cover for my quest because I told them that it irritated my face and they had that
Yup.
policy to send you a free VR cover.
Yup.
And I now have the Kiwi head strap for it.
Cool.
And I have a 10,000 milliamp hour battery that I bought.
Yeah.
And then I also use a set of noise canceling headphones that are more expensive than the quest itself, actually. While I play.
Yeah.
I live on Main Street with only a window separating me from Main Street, so the noise canceling is somewhat important to be able to hear well.
For sure. Okay. So, those are sort of the basic questions. How you got started at Echo, playing with Wrath, playing with Space Force, and then I know you transitioned to Odyssey, I believe.
Yes.
Was that in season 4 and season 5?
Yep.
Right.
Yep, that was my team season 4 5.
Yep. So like you're consistently playing at a fairly high level. I would say some of the highest level there is, right? Like you're in Masters, very high diamond. Like these are the top of the game, right? So my question for you is, how does it feel in playing at that high level? Does it feel different than when you first started? Does it?
Oh,
Like,
oh my God, yeah.
What's it
I mean,
like?
so when you first start, you have a year to think about everything you're gonna do. Like you get the disc and you're like, I want to do this with it. I think you can wait a few seconds and see what the opponents are doing, and then decide what you're gonna do. When you're playing at the highest levels, you don't have time to think about anything. Like half the time you do your thinking before you even touch the disc. You're like, all right, if I touch the disc and this happens, I'll do this. If this happens, I'll do this. Because you don't have time to think when you actually touch the disc. Like you just do the thing. And also a lot of the time it's just acting on pure instincts. Like afterwards I can put words to what my thought process was, but in the instant I just kind of like saw things and made a decision. Like there's no time for words in your head. Like the main difference between low and high level Echo is the pace of play. Like it's just a much higher pace of play the higher level you get. And it's not just because stacks are faster. They are much faster, but they get together faster, and the people pressuring you can put pressure on you more effectively. They will already be in the right position to pressure you when you touch the disc, as opposed to pressuring you after you get it. They will already be on their way before the pass is even thrown a lot of the time, much less as soon as it's thrown. So you just have less time always. And it's just very, very different. Like there's a completely different mentality at the highest level versus not.
For sure, and that's one of the main questions and one of the main goals for this show. Sort of tap into like the not only the thought process, but what are some of the best strategies? Like you're just talking about, like, hey, having a plan before you touch the disc.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, like, oh yeah, that makes total sense. But I will tell you this: I've been teaching like boot camps and newbies. When they get the disc, they're like, "What's your plan?" And they're like, "Oh, like, I just said this.
Yeah.
I don't know." I'm like, "Are you gonna shoot?" It's like, I don't know. Like,
Yeah, their plan is get the disc, and they're
Exactly.
like, "Oh, I have it. Cool."
exactly, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
like even that little simple change of like having a plan in mind before you touch the disc is like so transformational for, especially for some of these players. So in terms of today, like I just want to pick your brain a little and be like, hey man, in terms of Echo, like what are some of the coolest things? Like what's helpful for X, etc., etc. Like, well,
there's a million tiny things.
100%.
Like just every little aspect of the game, there's something you can do to make it a little bit higher percentage, make it a little faster, and give yourself a little bit more time. It's, I don't know, there's every little interaction you can always find something to improve on, some tiny little thing like this is what you should do here. And then it's not like you can ever actually remember any of those things. You can go through a point and say, here you should have done this, here you should have done this, here I should have done this, here I should have done this. And it's like you can never remember all that stuff. It takes a long time to make those things into a habit. There's a million tiny little things. I've actually just considered like making a series of YouTube videos. Like these are all the little skills I learned when I was trying to power my way from bronze to master in 3 months. Because there's a million tiny little things.
So we'll definitely talk about some of that. Why don't we take a look at some of the clips that we have? So we have one of your matches from NEPA. Yeah. And then we have some clips from VRML. I would just love to, as we're discussing, we're talking about the clips, if you have a tangent, like, hey, by the way, there's this little tip that I think is good. Dude, just, feed it to us. All right, so in terms of the first one, let's take a look at analysis. All right, did I get chroma keyed out? One moment, folks. Let me do filter, chroma key. Yeah, there we go. That's what it is. Because we had the other two chroma key. I had the order switched up. One moment, and then we'll get started. So I can see your green shirt. Yeah, that's the main thing. Yes. We'll have to talk to guests about green shirts later, but we'll figure it out.
Sorry.
No, don't even worry about it.
I didn't even think about that. I just put on the clean shirt that I had.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. It was just like, but as I'm looking, I was like, oh, that looks weird. What? I thought your shirt was green. Why is it blue?
It is, yeah.
Oh, wait, the blue is the background. Anyways, okay, we're good to go. All right, let's take a look at the first clip. We're going to take a look at one of your bubble offense clips. So we're going to start from there. So, again, we have, right here, I believe, Knife Rich is going to touch disc, and he's going to pass it up to you on ceiling. You're going to go transition from nests going down, and then you're going to be able to have a pass, and they're going to score towards bottom pocket.
Yes.
I think absolutely amazing play.
And Riz hit it. Yeah.
All right, so, why don't you... talk a bit with us about, especially so you touch disc right there and you're in a position to push, right? Especially on nests. You pass, you pass low, and great score, right? And just tell us a bit about the play.
Yeah, so right at the beginning of the clip, you see I get the disc and I throw it across to post, and both Wiggles and Knife Rich are both there. So we were not positioned the best. With two people in the same place is just never good. So we had both Wiggles and Knife Rich in the same spot, and they actually illustrate perfectly the reason that you shouldn't both be in the same spot. Both of them thought the either one would catch it, so neither of them did. And we got lucky that it bounced back right to a spot where Knife could get it. But both of them thought the other one would get it, and neither did. And then we just got lucky they recovered it. So we didn't have the best initial positioning, and that's right here. Yeah, right.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah. And you can see Knife and Wiggles are literally on top of each other, and both of them think the other one's going to get it, neither of them do. And then Knife recovers it, and you see, as soon as I threw the disc, I kept moving. That's something that a lot of people don't think about, and more than that, I also made sure I didn't lose the brawl. You can see I won the brawl against, I think that was Mistake on shield. Winning the brawl after you throw is very, very essential. A lot of people ignore that. They just throw the disc and they're like, I got the pass off, I'm good. But here, because I don't get stunned by Mistake, I am now a pass option for Knife Rich, because I won that brawl. So that is a very important thing to keep in mind. Win the brawl after you get stunned. And then I moved down to nest just to make myself a little bit closer to goal, and also to draw a defender to me. You can see a defender comes off of, I think he was floating in bubble.
Yeah, he was floating.
He went to a block in bubble. I think it was Mistake again, actually.
Yeah.
And
he was up top.
I know that's cool with who comes to me. Yeah, she was on shoulder and she moves to me. So I pull a defender to me, which is what I'm wanting here. And I hit Risen because he's wide open. I think optimally here, Risen would actually hit Knife Rich again. But Wiggles here had stunned out the goalie, so it's a completely fair shot to take. Because you see Wiggles was in the same spot as Knife Rich, and she moved from post to goal, whereas Knife Rich stayed back. I think he's left boot-ish right now. So Risen here has a stunned goalie and one pushing him. So as long as he gets it past Mistake in his face, it's a certain goal because Wiggles has stunned the goalie. You can see she does that right there.
Absolutely.
And then actually no, Psychaotic was on knife. So yeah, Risen's making the right decision here. He can either send it back to me or just shoot it. And I think it's a fair decision there to shoot it because the goalie's stunned. So I think we had some not great positioning, but Wiggles had great recognition that she was in the same spot as Knife-Rit. She moved, and Knife stayed in mostly the same spot. And the other thing, if you go back to right before my pass to Risen, there's someone on the block right next to the goal. I think it's Mistake. Yeah, so you see Mistake is on the block. Watch how long it takes Mistake to react when I throw this disc vertically. It's like
there's a bit of a stutter right there, right?
So I throw, and then he moves to another block, looks down, and then decides to move. Like he moves, looks, and then pushes. So he has just pushed off that block when Risen is shooting. And that's I mentioned vertical passing view before the show. That's what I mean there. Most people are very, very uncomfortable with vertical motion. They're very comfortable with moving forwards and backwards, left and right. When you ask them to move up or down, they become very uncomfortable because they're either sitting there with their neck at an awkward angle looking up, or in this case, they have to look down at their body, and the body gets out of the way in Echo. But normally, like in a normal real life sport, you don't really have vertical space to move up and down. So people aren't used to doing that. They aren't used to looking down at their own body and being able to see and then move that direction. So that vertical pass, it really like throws people off balance. It generally takes people a little bit more time to recognize, and it gives Risen time to catch the disc, collect himself, decide where he's shooting, realize the goalie is stunned, choose where he's shooting, and wind up, all before Mistake even moves. Because like you can see, he moves a little to get the pass, and then pushes off again to go up and winds up, and then Mistake is moving, like as he's winding up. And that gives us plenty of time to get the disc in the goal. So that's what that vertical passing really does, because most people are just not comfortable with the moving up and down. It takes them a little bit longer. And that's especially true with regrabbing pairs. Like TTao, how do you regrab when you're going straight up and straight down? Just off the top of your head, do you even know what arm motion you do?
Yeah, so my arm motion, we go here, and then maybe I'll put my other arm way high, try to catch them in case they do something really weird. So I'll probably do this.
Yeah, but you see how like weird that feels? Because like your right hand there was in front of your face. That's where your headset is. And then over your head, most people some people just don't have tracking there, depending on what headset they're using.
Absolutely.
Like most people are just very uncomfortable with it. Most people, if you ask them, hey, how do you boost straight downwards? They'll say, what? They just won't know.
So tell us about how do you boost straight up and down?
I use pitch.
Pitch.
So
Okay.
And then I just boost normally.
Okay. Cool. So
yeah.
pitch, then boost.
Yeah, that's how I do it. Because my entire philosophy in Echo is that every direction is up. Like I'm upside down in this clip because I'm on the ceiling. Like every direction is up, every direction is down, depending on what I want it to be. I'll just put myself in whatever orientation I want to be in to take whatever shot.
Absolutely.
That's just how it works for me. Because like zero gravity, there is no official up. There's just the up that people think is up.
Yes. So we're actually going to take a look at a clip in just a moment. The second clip is actually of you inverting and taking a shot. So we'll be taking a look at that in just a moment.
Perfect. Yeah.
But before we transition to that, though, there's a few things that you mentioned right now that I think are really important. One is you mentioned about like you're blocking after the pass. You're not just getting stunned out, right? You're still you're still either you're blocking or you're winning your brawl, and then you're transitioning and moving, right?
Yes.
So
absolutely.
So talk with us a little bit more about that. What's the philosophy there? It's like you pass, and then what are you thinking?
So if you can win your brawl, that is 100% the best thing that you can do. Because like you can see in this clip, I am wide open because I won my brawl. Like I'm wide open on the ceiling. Knife, even if there was someone directly in his face, it's like he gets the disc off the bounce, and then after he gets it, I am already moving to the ceiling. There is no one near me because I started moving as soon as I stunned Mistake.
Yes.
And I am just very, very, very open because of that. Because when you stun your defender, you have like a full second to go wherever you want. And when you're going wherever you want at 5 meters a second, you're going to be 5-6 meters away, depending on their reaction time. And that is more than enough space to get a pass to you. And the other thing is you can then go stun someone else. If you're like going for a cut pass and you hit somebody and then you don't get stunned, you can go stun the goalie. You can go stun another defender. You can go help your teammate that you just passed to. Like it's just very, very important that you are still a player right after you pass the disc. Give and goes are one of the most underutilized strategies in all of Echo. They really are. Because like if you cannot get stunned after you pass the disc, you're still a passing option. Because otherwise, if you just accept I'm getting stunned after I pass this disc, and your defender leaves you and goes and covers someone else, you have left your team in a 3v4, and that's awful.
Sure.
That's the main thing to avoid. But if you don't get stunned and you stun your defender, then now you have a massive advantage because a 4v3 on offense is much more advantageous than a 3v4 the other way around. Because when you have 4 offenders and only 3 defenders, you're going to have 2 open people because there's someone in goal. But if you have 3 offenders and, sorry, if you have the other way around where you have 3 offenders and 4 defenders, you just have no open people. You can still win a 1v1 and score, like I did so in the first round of this game.
For sure.
But there's a big difference between having 2 open people and having none. And that's the difference you make when you win your brawl right after you throw a disc.
Absolutely.
It's huge.
And then the other thing that you're really talking about is that, especially with the vertical passing, right? What you're mentioning is like that extra second for the defender to react, right?
Yeah.
Now you're giving the person that just got the pass a little extra time to make their move.
Yes.
In terms of, so we see it right there, right? Where you have that pass going low from nest low, and there's that bit of a hitch before they're able to react well.
Yes.
In terms of vertical, how far would you say you have to be for that vertical pass to be effective? Is it
so it sounds weird, but it doesn't depend on where you are. It depends on where the defender is. Because here, I threw that disc to basically directly under Mistake. Like, it's a little bit to the side, but it's almost straight down for them.
Yes.
And that's really what makes the difference, is where the defender has to move to get there. Because if I'm throwing the disc straight up and down, but the defender is on the backboard, then that's not much of a change for them. But if they're throwing to almost directly underneath them, then it's a huge change. Making your defenders change direction is really what you're trying to do. And that applies to stacks as well. You want to make the stack change direction as much as possible.
Again, so this is something that, I don't think a lot of people think about is, not just positioning on offense, but like, okay, you know what? Normally when we position, we go one high, one low, right? But you're also going like, hey, this is where the defenders are, and this is where their weakness is. And you're trying to go, okay, if the defender, as you're mentioning in this play, if the defenders run those block right there, as Risen is positioned right below them, it's going to make that defender work extra hard to to react to that pass.
Yeah, having your usual positioning is great when you're playing a team that it works against, but if you're playing a team that has a positioning that beats yours, you need to know how to change it. Like, acknowledging where the defense is set up is huge, and I think that's the biggest part of offense. I think Aerokn1ght Titan is the biggest proponent of this. Adaptability is the biggest difference between mid diamond, top diamond, and masters. It really is. You'll see mid diamond or high diamond teams absolutely shit all over a plat team because they're really, really good at what they do, and they play a high level team, and that team figures them out. And they're like, oh, our thing isn't working. They don't know how to adapt it, and they'll lose. Like, that's the really big difference. Like, there's a lot of mid-diamond teams that are technically more capable than bottom master and top diamond teams. They're better shooters, better passers, better brawlers, whatever. But they're not as adaptable. They don't know how to change what they're doing, and that's why they lose.
Absolutely. So in terms of adaptability, and since you mentioned even inverting before, let's take a look at our second clip, which is of you doing an offensive play.
Sure.
So let's take a look at this real fast. What we'll see is you're going to be able to get disc. I believe they pass. I believe you're able to get disc.
We get really lucky that they triple pressure knife and he still gets the disc.
Yes, right. I believe you were the one that you score because you were invert on shield, I believe.
Yeah, I'm right side up. I'm at post, but he's obviously very, very red, so he misses the pass a little bit towards shield. So I have momentum in that direction, and I use shield to reverse my direction. So the main reason that I used pitch there, I mean, like the commentators mentioned, like, oh, it throws off the goalie, and like, yeah, that's some of it. It throws off like what the goalie is thinking, but also pitch and yaw are the same speed. Like, you will turn around a full rotation in exactly the same amount of time. And what I actually do there is I use pitch and roll at the same time. You can see I'm right side up, facing towards the side of the arena. If you use pitch and roll at the same time, you will invert and turn 90 degrees. And it takes exactly the same time as yawing around 180 degrees.
Sure.
So that's what I do there, is I use pitch and roll at the same time to just immediately be facing the goal and upside down. Okay. And then I just am facing the goal and upside down, so I take a shot. And it throws off the goalie a little bit. It helps. My shoulder is super messed up, so I don't have much variation in arm angle when I throw, because it would hurt me. So being able to invert and use roll really helps me vary my release angles to confuse goalies. And that's one of the main reasons I like doing it.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is, it's a quicker movement to pitch and roll versus just pitching or just rolling, right? So I'm hearing like you're getting yourself a little extra time because of the speed, right? So
somewhat, yeah. Somewhat. It's exactly the same speed as using yaw. Like, yawing 180 degrees is the same speed as doing the pitch roll move that I do there. But goalies are confused when you use pitch roll, and they're not when you use yaw. So, like, why would you use yaw?
Okay.
Like, it accomplishes the same thing, but now I'm upside down and spinning, and they're confused. So
Got it. Okay.
if them confused and me not is good.
Okay. So let me sort of like re-summarize that. I'm hearing that one, that movement you did, part of that is because your shoulder's a little messed up. So you want to like you add more variability with pitch and roll.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And as you can see, again, you're able to win that 1v1. Even though the defender's about to push you, you're still able to win that 1v1. You were able to score. Now, part of that, was the fact that Knife was able to get it from like a triple pressure, right? So, so good on him, right?
Yeah, Knife made a great play there. The other thing you can see he ducks a little bit to get the disc, and the people trying to get to him don't. That's something you should keep in mind when you're doing vertical motion. Like when you're doing horizontal motion, you'll often think, oh, I should lean forward to get this. That's a very natural thing. When you're going vertically, why not duck to get it?
Absolutely.
It's exactly the same thing. And he does that just a little bit, and it's enough for him to beat all 3 players to that disc and get the pass off to me.
Absolutely. So I'm hearing one is using your play space correctly, right? If you're going down, you might as well duck, right? If you're going forward, you might as well reach forward, right? Now, again, this is for whoever's listening. We're still talking about staying within your 4x4. We're not talking about play space. We're not talking about play space piece.
Yeah, you're not going to move your feet for any of it. Yeah. And the other thing that a lot of people don't think of, and I do a little bit there, every time if you're going towards Geo and expecting to come back the same way you came from or in a similar direction, lean forward as you get to the Geo and then slap off and then lean back to where you were.
Okay.
It's just free distance and time.
Okay.
Like you lean forward, slap off, and lean back, and you just gained 2 leans worth of distance for free. Like, why not do it?
Okay.
There's just no downside.
Absolutely. And, one of the things that I remember learning when I started was actually, Technoweb was telling me this, was that, as long as you stay within your 4x4, you can jump to the front of your 4x4 and then jump back to the other side of your 4x4. Now, it might look like, it might, it almost looks like play space abuse because you're traveling the full 4 meters, but as long as you're within your 4x4, like you're
4 feet, but
4 feet, right? As long as you're staying within that space, there's a lot of things you can do in there.
So, personally, I prefer to keep my feet mostly stationary unless there's something I really want to grab or a person I really want to grab. Because if I ever move to one side of my play space, I can only now move in the other direction, right? Absolutely. So by keeping centered, I have movement in any direction depending on where they throw it. So like I use an Asterion playmat. It has that circle in the middle. Proximats also have a nub in the middle. Whatever mat you have should have a note of where the middle is. Like if you're using just like a square on the floor or one of those like puzzle pieces that you can get that are very cheap, and I highly recommend them if you don't want to spend the money for a nicer mat, mark your center, because knowing where the middle is huge, so you can move in any direction. Like I would say recenter yourself whenever you can.
Absolutely. And this is having something physically you can feel with your feet is very, very helpful. And if
absolutely.
Now again, I also bought a Proximat because I was getting tired of hitting my wall. That's one.
But absolutely, that's actually the reason I switched to Asterion instead of Proximat, because it's a little smaller and my room isn't quite big enough.
Yeah. So after I did that, I was like, well, wait a second. Well, I don't really care about the mat. What I really care about is that nub that stays centered.
Yes.
And ultimately, what you could also do, by the way, in case anybody wants to do this, you could. I got like a little rubber button, and I just taped it to my carpet, so I have a physical reference point. Because that was the again, this is like my secondary play space when I play like upstairs or something like that. Just because I'm not buying a second Proximat and I'm not hauling that thing up and down.
They
the
are
stairs.
a little bit pricey. They're really nice. They are a bit pricey.
So in terms of like, especially for newer players, if you're like not sure of your play space, yo, what's up, Wiggles? Welcome. If you're not sure of your play space, just go ahead and get some kind of physical marker of some kind, whether you have a puzzle mat, carpet, wood floor, like get something physical that you can either tape or just put there so that when you touch with your feet, you go, okay, this is where it is. I do not recommend something heavy because then you will stub your toe.
Yes.
Constantly.
Something soft.
Something soft. Yeah, Wiggles, we've been looking at your gameplay the whole time, man.
Yeah, you got a great goalie stun in the last clip. It was we're taking an open goal.
100%, we're taking a look at you. Yeah, man. Yeah, that's your team. Thanks for coming. You got any comments? Feel free to. We'll definitely include you in some of these. We're taking a look at one of the plays. So again,
here honestly is probably a higher percentage for me to back pass to you, Wiggles, because you're sitting there completely open on the satellite cloud area there. I was just feeling my shot that night.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like, Knifefish drew out 3 people, right? So, like...
Exactly, yeah. That's one of the main reasons I threw it, because I see 3 people pressure Knife, and I'm like, okay, I have a 1v1. And Misake does a great job getting back to me in time, but, like, I'll be honest, one person between me and the goalie is generally not enough motivation for me to not just shoot it. It
100%.
isn't.
Yeah. So in terms of that, why don't we take a look? One of the things you mentioned was about that vertical passing, but also a bit
Yeah.
about like adaptability. You just mentioned like
Yeah.
that's a difference between some of the like mid diamond players versus like the like masters players is the adaptability of the
Absolutely.
players,
Yes.
right? So in terms of that, one of the things that's really common in masters and something that I was talking about with Luke and single shot was the fact that a lot of master tier players just run the standard split. Well,
Absolutely.
it looks like the standard split,
Absolutely.
right? Like it's left, right, high or low, right?
Yep.
And so we're gonna take a look at some of the plays that you just did, which looks like a standard split, but I know there's more going into it.
I know. We ran the same play every rollout that entire match. That is not a joke.
Yes.
We literally did.
All right, folks, let's take a look at that then. All right, so this is the initial joust, as you can see. I believe Knife has disc, passes to the left side.
And it goes to Wiggles, yeah. Because
Exactly.
so they're stacked split up. One of them pressured Knife, the other one came to my side. So Knife immediately pressured me. And then the stack got back together to go to Wiggles' side, and the back stack pushed up towards me. So that's why I immediately back pass it to Knife there. Because I see the back stack coming. I just glance over there and see the back stack coming to me. And I know that there is a stack just on Wiggles, so she is not open. And there's a stack in my face. And in general, I try to avoid passing directly into a stack because oftentimes a high-level stack will send one person to pressure and the other one grabs an anchor, tunnel block, station, whatever, between where they were going from and where they're pressuring, so that if you throw it right back at them, they'll grab it. So I wanted to avoid throwing forwards in this case, or back across to Wiggles. So I throw it back to Knife. And then you can see the stack that was on Wiggles, they just abandon her and go all the way backfield. And the stack that was on me then goes to pressure Knife. I'm on the wall there and I'm open. And then I can, when the stack bounces off of Knife and goes back to me, I can hit Risen cross high. The pass to me is a little bit off. It was just unfortunate timing. I had just pulled off the ceiling. And then we get a little bit of a scramble recovery. But the main thing we do there is recognize what the defense is doing and take advantage. Because right off the joust, you see Knife recognize that the defense has one mid and one on my side, so he hits Wiggles. And then she is immediately pressured by the stack, so she hits me, and I recognize I'm pressured by the back stack, and I hit Knife. And right there, we've already done everything we need to do on a rollout. We've established possession, and we forced one stack to go all the way back to their own zone. So now we are playing against a single stack, and we have possession, and everyone's set up. We have 3 open passes with me, Wiggles, and Risen. We've done everything we need to do. So just that 3-pass sequence was enough, and we've done it.
Now, one of the things that I really noticed, especially in this play, and this camera is not the best because it's on the other side of the camera, and they're just like back and forth, back and forth. You mentioned it even before. You were saying that the give and go was one of the most underutilized plays, right? And we see a lot of give and go during this joust. It looks like you're passing a forward, back. Like QB touches it, I think, like twice.
Yes.
Right after the initial
Knife
throw.
passes to Wiggles, she passes to me, I pass to Knife, and then Knife passes it back to me, and then I pass it back to Knife. And the important thing here is that neither of us ever get stunned in that entire process. It's like we are getting pressured. In this case, we don't actually engage in brawls. We just dodge them, which is just as effective. But the important thing is that we definitely avoid getting stunned. You can actually see, I mentioned the stacks will often split up and have one cover where they are coming from and one go to pressure. That's exactly what the stack does as they pressure me after Knife's second pass to me. You can see one come to me and one stop on the block that I'm on. And I have to use the block and juke up a little bit to get it around them to Knife. So that's something to be aware of. Use your anchors to get around the people that stop. Because if you're anchored and they're just floating in space, you can easily just juke around them and get it back to where you want it to go.
Absolutely.
And we just got a little bit unlucky on Risen's pass to me.
For sure.
We end up recovering, and I think we get possession again anyway.
You do. You get possession.
It's just a little bit of a scuffed pass there. But notably, Risen and Wiggles do a fantastic job getting stacked up again to go recover this disc.
Yes. The initial sequence, especially that possession, like touch and go, like everybody on the team touches the disc. And it's just like back and forth, back and forth.
Yep,
right?
Absolutely.
So here's, one of the main questions that I want to ask in terms of this play is talking about the adaptability of a standard split, right? So I know...
Wiggles, I think you are right there, yeah. I was a relatively low percentage pass. I agree, Wiggles.
So again, the main question I'm having is how do you adapt the standard split, right? Like, how do you, for example, the person, they went towards trap instead of going straight towards like left wall, right? As you can see there.
Yes.
Right.
So some of going to trap is that vertical movement that I talked about earlier. And Wiggles is also very aware of this since she's in chat. Vertical passing and vertical boosting is something that people are just bad at, so making them go up and down is useful. So you can see here, the play that we ran every time was literally Wiggles and left trap and me on right popcorn every play that entire match. And it worked like almost every time. And some of that is actually Knife Rich's patience and choosing where to pass. Knife Rich is very, very good at not getting stunned as QB, which is huge. But he's also good at waiting until he needs to pass it to do so. One of the most dangerous things you can do as a QB is immediately pass it and begin a rollout with thinking, I'm going to throw it here immediately. Because if you do that, you risk the defending stack being a little bit slow and just reading the pass and getting it before your offensive player even has a chance to touch it. Like, if you go in with a prescribed, this is our play, we are going to do this no matter what, at a high level, you will almost always get fucked. You always have to be adaptable. Like, you have to say, oh, this is covered, we're going to do something else. And this play is relatively what we drew up, but Knife is very good at not doing what we drew up, just in case.
For sure.
He's very good at that.
Now, tell us a bit about how, like, in terms of adaptability, and you're saying, like, the QB wants to hold the disc. Like, what are you thinking as you're in this play, right? Like, what are you reading the QB and where they're going? Is your comms, like, what's happening?
So I'm trying to watch the front stack. I see the front stack is split up and one came to me. So I believe I immediately said covered on this play because the front stack split up and one came actually to popcorn. And you can see I go a little bit farther than I normally do to table because that player went straight to popcorn. So I immediately went past them to be open. And then that's why Wiggles has the initial pass here. And also if I'm at popcorn, there's double diamonds and station somewhat in the way of that pass. So I went a little bit farther because both the pass went to Wiggles and there was a person that came to my popcorn. Right off the initial douse, that's where the defensive player went. And then I'm also looking at the backstack here. So you can see that when I get the disc initially, I immediately send it back to Knife. That's something I think I talked to you in the pre-show about. Before I touched that disc, I knew I was sending it back to Knife. Because I had seen that backstack before I touched the disc. And I'm like, okay, I am going to immediately be under pressure when I touch this disc. I'm going to send it back to Knife Rich because the other stack is on Wiggles and one stack is on me. Therefore, Knife Rich is open. So before I touch the disc, I knew what I was doing. I'm sending it back to Wiggles. So in that case, I'm trying to keep track of everything. Like, you should always keep track of all 7 players in your head. It's tough. You almost always fail at it, but you should try to. And where I failed in this case, I did not know where Risen was in this case. I'm pretty sure that he's deep high left when I'm watching it back later. But in this case, I did not know where Risen was in that moment. I knew Wiggles was covered. I knew there was a stack on her and a stack on me, so I sent it back to Knife.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's on the information that I was fully aware of. That's what I acted on. I think it might have been good to send it to Risen there because Wiggles and I both had a stack on us, and forward passes are kind of in general better. But I'm very happy with how this one worked out because the stack that was on Wiggles just went straight home. And that's the optimum thing here, where we're playing essentially a 3v stack in mid with 1 deep, which is great.
So in terms of that, let's actually take a look at the 4th clip that I have, which is the joust again, but this is another standard split. Now again, there's some of the same elements in play. You guys score on this one, so let's take a look at that real fast.
Sounds good.
Now, I believe it's joust again. You're going left, right.
Yep.
And then also
same play, we have Wiggles left trap and me right popcorn. This time Knife is immediately pressured. He does a fantastic job getting a leech. You can see right at the beginning of the clip, he leeches the stack and stuns one out, and that's why I can hit him deep. And then he honestly just kind of shits on some people to score here. And Wiggles gets a beautiful goalie stun.
Yes.
But yeah, Knife Rich enabled a lot of that play. You can see as soon as he throws it, he goes for the stack and stuns the stack. And in this moment, I was asking, and he was calming to me that the stack was broken. So I know that I can walk up, and the instant I touch this disc, you can see me drop the disc and boost up to 4-7 just in case. It's something that's very low risk. You should just do it every time you have the disc and you're floating towards the goal. Because like worst case, you just grab it again and throw it. And best case, you have an extra 0.7 meters a second on your shot. So it's just something you should do. But yeah, no, Knife's leech is what really works here. And Knife is good enough at juking to just get around the pressure here. I think this pass should have probably gone to shoulder. If I remember correctly, I get pressured by one of the people, and Knife is pressured by another. And then shoulder, I think it's either Wiggles or Risen, is wide open on shoulder, while Knife is just breaking someone's ankles.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because like you can see, I am at post here. I get covered there. Risen is breaking someone's ankles. Wiggles is stunning the goalie. Risen is wide open on shoulder here.
Yeah.
It is notable. I probably should have moved here. Because post is far too close to shoulder. The person covering me can also probably jump to Risen. I should have moved down to floor, boot, maybe backboard, but Wiggles is already there. So probably at least floor. I was not great. I was not in great positioning here. I think I get stunned out, which means I can't really move, but I should have moved earlier. And also I should have talked to Risen about where we both were. Yeah, Wiggles, you're getting the stun on goalie. You get a fantastic stun on Babs.
Yo, what's up, Queen? Yeah. No, and also I believe you move towards After the goal,
Yeah,
after the
do
goalie,
move. Yeah,
after the
Go,
goalie stun.
going to goal was the wrong decision here because Wiggles is already there.
Yeah.
After I get the disc and pass it to Knife, I did not do great there because I should have moved to floor there because Wiggles is already in goal. So I'm basically contributing nothing. Like I'm going for a bottom dunk, but they have another teammate that comes to cover me. I should have gone to floor to pull that teammate away from goal because that orange player possibly could have saved that shot. So I should not have gone towards goal there. I made a mistake there for sure.
So there's a few pieces that's sort of what you just mentioned, right? One was mentioning that when you have disc and you're not red, you're green, for example, right? Just float, get the 4.7, get that full boost, right? Might as well. Very low risk, right? Now, in my mind, that's the same thing as setting up for an ender, right? Where you drop the disc and now you're available to boost or to block,
sort of
right?
Thing, yeah.
Essentially the same, the same setup.
Yeah,
right?
It feels weird, but when you have possession, you're floating forward, drop the disc.
Yeah.
Like there's just very little downside. That it's
absolutely. And then
assuming you don't mess up to grab it again. But yeah.
The other pieces that I'm hearing is one, that fantastic leech by Knife, right?
Yes.
Knife Rich is able to get that stun, and let's watch that real quick, right? Is that initial,
it's right at the beginning of the clip?
Right at the beginning, you can see
straight
it.
at him, and then you can see one of them goes to back wall and comes back, and Knife can grab them because of that. They messed up. You see one stops on Nest, the other one goes to back wall and bounces off. I think if they had both stopped on Nest, they could have avoided him, but they couldn't because that one went to back wall.
Yes. And then as he gets a stun, he gets the leech and gets a stun at the same time, right? You can see it right there.
So I think that's Mistake that's been boosting with Cool Up this match.
I believe so.
Yeah, so Knife stuns out Cool Up, and Mistake hits his head on Cloud, which is huge. Because if he doesn't hit his head on Cloud, then I will be pressured, and I will have to hit a pass. And I'm not in great position to pass. While you're walking through tube is one of the most dangerous times, because that tube cuts off a lot of pass lanes. But in this case, Mistake hits his head, so I have plenty of time.
Yeah.
And I got lucky there.
For sure. And the final piece that you're mentioning is just about positioning, and you're mentioning about like in terms of offensive positioning, that if someone's free on shoulder, being on post is not the best position because a defender can cover that lane. It's it's just a little too close, right? So talk with us for a second about one of the main things that we need to talk about is actually offensive positioning, right? You mentioned before about reading the defenders, right? Like if the defender's there, go underneath them. It's gonna be a pain in the ass for them, right? One of the questions that I have is, what do you think about when setting up for positioning, right? Because you mentioned if they're shoulder, you're going to boot or floor.
So it's not just where the players are; it's also where the passing lane is. So, for example, even if I went straight to floor, if the disc is on like the cross Pac-Man, floor and shoulder on the same side is not far enough apart because one person on shield can cover both of those passing lanes. So you don't just have to think about, oh, I'm physically not close to my teammates. You also have to think about where the passing lanes are and make sure the angle between those two is large enough.
Okay.
So in this case, it honestly might be large enough because Knife is very close. But it still should be bigger. So like me going to floor there is enough. But if Knife is back on the cross-side Pac-Man, it's not enough. And I need to come closer to him. I need to come back out of bubble somewhere in that direction.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is, one, in terms of offensive positioning, is making sure that you're essentially being a pain in the ass for the defender, right? Where do they not want you to go is where you want to go, right? But also I'm hearing is you want to think about passing lanes and try to position yourself so that the person with the disc has the most options. That's what it sounds like. Okay.
Yeah, and so that the defense has to spread out, because the reason you want to spread out on offense is to make the defense spread out. Like that's literally the reason. Because if the defense is all packed in between the disc and the goal, there's a much higher percentage chance that they will grab the disc before it goes in. So you want to spread out the defense, and that means spreading out not just your positions but also your passing lanes.
Yes. Okay. Spreading out their positions, and how do you spread out the defense?
I mean, some of it is just backing out of bubble. It's not shown in this clip, but like backing out of bubble is huge on that, pulling them literally farther away from the goal. But also you can position yourself in bubble in ways that will pull them out. One of my favorite ways to pull people out of bubble is hit a pass to someone that is on the edge of bubble, so like on shoulder, post, shield, nest, boot, somewhere in there, and throw the pass behind them, so away from bubble. Because oftentimes, if someone is trying to cover someone on the edge of bubble and they see the pass go to their person, they're like, oh, I need to pressure the disc right now or they're going to score. So if you throw the pass behind them, that person covering them will often just leave bubble. They'll just chase him. Because they're like, oh, this is my person. They're on the edge of bubble. I need to get him. But that person's just leaving bubble. and now the defender's out of bubble, and that's exactly what you want to accomplish. And that's another tangent. Leading defenders away from passes, like leading offensive players away from the defense is huge. Like if you see someone is covered on the right side, throw the disc to their left. If you see a defender coming in from above them, throw the disc under them. Like you don't have to throw the disc to your player all the time. Force them to move, especially if they're on an anchor. Force them to move in the direction you know they need to move. So like if they're completely open, lead them towards the goal. If they're covered from one side, lead them away from that person covering them. Like lead passes away from the defense.
Okay,
it's
lead
huge.
passes away from defense. Yeah, that's you know that's definitely something that's not talked about, especially at lower levels. Right? It's like you just pass it to the person. But no, as you're mentioning, like where you lead the pass is going to change how the player reacts.
Yep.
Right?
Like if someone is on post and there's someone sitting on one of those outside goalie blocks trying to cover them, and you lead them towards the goal, you have absolutely fucked them. If you lead the pass towards shield or down or up, you've given them a shot. And it's huge. That small angle adjustment, so like a 20-30 degree change if you're like 5 meters away, is not a small change. It's not a big change, but it can make a huge difference on whether or not the defender can get to them. Like just lead them away from the defense. And that can especially work when you're panicked and you're like, oh, I don't see anyone uncovered. Where do I throw this? Throw it to a person that looks covered, but throw it away from where the defender is.
Yeah. Okay,
Because all you're trying to do is buy time in that case. So you give them a little bit of time, and maybe the next person they pass to will have a little bit more time.
Absolutely.
You don't need to give them a lane to shoot. You don't need to hit someone completely open. You just need to hit someone that's open enough to maintain possession.
Yeah. Okay. And this is sort of predicated though on the fact that the receiver has the capacity to juke around the geo and catch a pass that's not directly at them. Now,
it does assume that your receiver is decent.
Yeah. Now, again, that's something that's very easy to practice. All you gotta do is play around on geos and make sure you slap and able to transition fast enough, right? But again, this is a topic that your team does have to be at a certain level of competence to pull off, right?
Yes, absolutely. And actually, this is another reason to make sure you have your center play space marker, because you can take that step in any direction that you need to if you make sure you're centered every time you grab geo.
Absolutely. Now, as you're talking about leading passes, you know, there's a bunch of really cool little tips and stuff that we even talked about today. And what I really want to do is for you to apply some of these tips to one of the community segments that we're going to watch in a second.
Yeah,
for you to go like, you know what, if Sancheezy did this instead of this, oh man, you know what? They got their disc stolen on offense. Man, they should have led the pass away from the defender instead. These are all little pieces that I would love for you to sort of apply to this team, okay? So, you know, beyond that, I think let's just move right into it then. Unless there's something else you really want to talk about in terms of these clips, in terms of the two jousts we just saw from
I want to briefly mention something that Wiggles mentioned in chat, because she's absolutely right. After you drop your shield, there's a small cooldown before you can put it back up.
For sure.
Knife took advantage of that to get this leech. You can see cool up shield for a second as she approaches Knife Ridge, which is a good idea. But Knife Ridge takes advantage of the fact that she can't put it back up to stun her and get downfield.
Yes, you can see.
That's just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, you can see the shield right there, right, and then the block, and then the stun.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
You can see a shield pop up right there at where your paws pull up shields, and he knows that she can't shield again, so he pulls off of her and stuns her and gets downfield.
Absolutely.
Because she physically cannot shield again in that half-second window or however long it is.
Absolutely. So now, let's take a look at some of the community clips then, I believe. The first one should be... Is this right? Okay, wait a second. Now I gotta readjust this so that's in frame. Just a small thing. Give me one moment. But yeah, I know what I did. I shouldn't have done that. Whoops. No, it's because when it...
Oh, you pulled up the full video on the clip? Or?
Yeah. Okay, I know exactly what I did. Yeah, we're good. Because after a while, YouTube just resets the view to be into full screen. There we go. We're good now. Does. All right, so we're gonna take a look at one of the jousts by Team Slap. Right. Again, they have I believe they're running a version of relay through.
They have someone mid, so it's not a pure relay. I think this is basically just split. They had someone each tube and one on double diamond. I'm assuming the person on double diamond was going after the stack, based on the actions they took. They were trying to chase the stack around. Really the thing I want to highlight here, don't get me wrong, love the Echoholics. They're a fantastic team. I love them all. They messed up this defensive joust. They're running a 1-2-1, but Smooth does not hard pressure the QB. He's very slow. The QB has lots of time to think about what he's doing and realize where the stack is before throwing this. And the person trying to punch the stack has enough time to bother them and make them be concerned about getting away from the person stunning them rather than chasing the pass. And that's really what gives Team Slap the opportunity to move through mid here. is that neither the individual or the stack pressured either the QB or the first pass hard enough. And that's what gave them the chance through mid. Because you can see Smooth is very slow. The stack goes to the correct side for this pass, but they were too occupied with not getting stunned by the person that went to double to chase this pass and attack it. So the person that receives the pass at Pac-Man has enough time to set up and send another pass. And now Smooth here is completely out of the play. You can watch the mini-map. He doesn't affect this play the rest of the time because the QB gets around him. So Team Slap, because they get their stack together, now has a 4v3 in bubble.
Absolutely.
This pass, being a little off target, actually really helps them. You can see the stack was planning to go straight towards shoulder. They try to correct to where it was, and then the guy with the disc there, I can't see, Mug, does a great job juking once he gets the disc to avoid the stack. And then the stack does not split up as they should, and it results in that dunk. Because the stack of both of them pressured the person with the disc. One person should have pressured the disc, and the other one should have pressured either the person on post or backboard, but they stayed together, so Slap gets to score there.
Yeah. So rather than just feedback for Team Slap, what I'm hearing is, especially on a 1-2-1 joust, you really want to pressure the QB or the first pass hard.
Both. The point of it is to pressure both as hard as you can.
Okay.
So your stack should be boosting as fast as they possibly can to wherever they're stopping, and then just immediately stopping. Like, they should not stop regrabbing until they get to where they are stopping, and the person riding them should make sure to pull off right before they get there. So they're going as fast as physically possible. Because the idea is to give the QB no time to think, so they just immediately have to slap it, and that stack is ready to immediately pressure the next pass. The counter to a 1-2-1 is any 2 successive passes. But they have to be done very quickly, because both the QB and the first pass are hard pressured. But if you don't hard pressure it, then you're not pressuring anything, and you only have one person downfield to combat however many people they send deep. So the Echoholics rollout is just a little bit slow here and gives Slap too much time to think and set up, and that's what gets them the score here. And they do a great job taking advantage here, where they see that the stack, and actually the QB MTS does a fantastic job here. The stack is moving from left station towards double when he throws that pass to the left. And that means the stack has exactly the opposite momentum they need, and that's a huge thing. Throwing a disc while the stack is anchored is massively different from throwing a disc while the stack is moving in the opposite direction. Because getting started is the slowest part of a stack. Once they get going, they're very fast, but they need to get going in the correct direction. So if they're moving at all in the wrong direction, it doesn't even have to be opposite direction. If they're moving forward when they should go left, or down when they should go up, or back when they should go right, or whatever, it can even just be 90 degrees off. Just throw it not in the direction the stack is moving. Almost all stacks are really bad at changing directions unless they're really good. And when they're really good, you have to adapt to that. But
of course,
when they're not like a top master stack, they're going to be bad at changing directions. And you should exploit that. And they did a great job here, because they see the stack moving back towards mid, and they throw it in the opposite direction the stack is moving. And they just have so much time. They can just walk it through mid and set up. And they have a 4v3 in bubble here, and they double pressure the disc, which gives them the score.
Absolutely. So just to make sure I got everything, because there's many little pieces, right? And I sort of want to summarize and make sure I got them correctly. One part is, again, for some of our viewers, but also in my mind, it's like, at some point we're going to clip all this and make this all look nice and pretty. Not today, because we got too much on our plate. But at some point, we're going to make this look nice and pretty. And, one of the things I'm hearing is, one is, in terms of stacks, they're weakest when they just launch off, right? And what I'm hearing is, if you can pass in a direction that they're not going, chances are that stack will take a little extra time to readjust.
Absolutely, yeah. Like, the best time to throw is right after a stack pushes off in the other direction.
Okay. Yeah, so now we saw that a lot in one of our third clips that we watched on that joust, where you had a stack that was pushing, right? And what you're doing is, like, for example, they're about to push you. You knew that when you were going to get the dash, you're going to pass it back to QB Knife Ridge. And you know that was going to cause the stack to make some very big directional changes, and it was going to cause them to be slower, right?
Yep. Yeah, and you also have to be aware that you have to pass around where the stack was coming from in that case. But yes, that's exactly what it is. When they pressure me, I can now pass in the opposite direction, and the stack has to turn around, which gives Knife Ridge a lot of time.
Absolutely. Okay. So, viewers out there, if you're fighting against a really fast stack, pass it after they start going, so that then you can, like, essentially in my mind, it's like they have a cone when they launch off, and their cone is going for whatever direction they're going. If you can get the disc out of that cone, out of that, like, what's the best way? Line of fire, like FPS. I just think of like cone of fire, right? It's like line of sight. It's like, right? In my mind, it's like a stack. Go ahead.
Yeah, the best stacks can just air brake, turn around, hold their arms in another direction, and keep boosting the other way. Like, if you're playing against, like, Choco Sweet, Game Ryan, it doesn't matter. Like, they're going to get there fast anyway. But
Yeah.
most stacks aren't those stacks. Like most
Exactly.
stacks are not Simon Lewis or what are I'm trying to remember the best stacks in EU, and this is just not on my head
Yeah,
right
I
now.
remember
But there's
Hyperion
some
was
excellent stacks over
fast.
there as well.
Absolutely. I know in NA, Chocolate Sweet Tooth definitely high on the list. Ender Strem is definitely high. Of course, you have, Ryan and, like, Game Kung, all those
Yeah,
people. Like
the
that.
Game Ryan stack and the Kung J stacks are both deadly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
the Mozzie Law stack is another example. They both always have low ping and they boost together a lot. They're insane together.
here's the question actually for you is, I know you mentioned about like those directional stacks being not as good. Can you give us some tips on directional regrabbing?
Yeah, actually. So this is stolen from Zach via Mamba, kind of, but I've also like talked to many other people about it, and they have very similar strategies. A lot of changing directions in a boost is on who is in the back, not who's in the front. If you are a good booster, you can make whoever's in front go whatever direction you want them to go. Because all you have to do is pull yourself onto their hand in the direction you want to go. So reposition yourself before you pull through. So if you're behind them and you want to go left, move yourself to their right side and then pull onto their hand.
Yep.
Wherever their hand might be, if it's your usual stacking partner, talk to them about where they hold their hand and what they want to do, so you know where to pull. But even if it's not your usual stacking partner, you can just look at their hand and then move yourself, draw a line, and it's not just exactly where you want to go. You actually pull even more extreme than that, because your actual velocity is their velocity plus the velocity that you add with your pull. So say you're going forward and you want to go 45 degrees to the left, you can pull 90 degrees to the left, and now your actual momentum will be 45 degrees to the left.
Absolutely.
And the same logic applies to using your face booster. That's something that I see people not use very much at all, like the back face booster, whatever you want to call it. The back booster that you use by clicking the left stick. If you're going forward and you want to go a little bit to the left, look more to the left than where you want to go. Look past your target. Because your net momentum is your current momentum plus the momentum the face booster adds, which means that it's somewhere in the middle of those two directions.
Absolutely.
And
Now,
it's the same thing with regrabbing.
Absolutely. Now, yeah, that is something that's not talked about enough, 100%. And in my mind, I remember, because this topic, I've talked to a lot of people as well. We actually had this discussion. It's like, what was it? It's like your velocity going forward, and then you're adding direction, like angular velocity, and that's changing your total velocity. No, not
there
that's
technically
not,
is an there is no angular velocity in Echo. Angular velocity is rotation.
No, okay, so I got that wrong.
Yeah, it's all linear velocity, but you're adding velocity in another direction, and then you add those two, and it's the average of them essentially.
I remember now. Vectors.
Yep,
that's the term.
exactly
That's the term.
Yep.
We're not going to talk about this too much because this is just dirty stuff. That's what you want to think about is, again, right? Like, but the more at speed, in my mind, is like the faster you go, the more you have to make a hard adjustment to hit your target.
Yes, absolutely. As a literal math teacher, vectors is the right term.
Yeah. So I know what I'm talking about sometimes. That velocity got man, I shot myself in the foot with that. But yes, there's vectors, and you're adding change.
Yeah,
anyways,
absolutely.
Not
like
super
if you're going 15, pulling straight to the side at 4 does a lot less than if you're going 4.
Exactly.
So like, yeah.
Exactly, which is like now this is where most people, especially newer players, are used to, where they're free floating, right, and then they hit their booster. You look at your target and you go, which is totally fine, right? But when you're regrabbing, like to make those adjustments, like most of the time, one of the most common in my mind is like when someone's like regrabbing through tunnel, right, and they're trying to go to goal, right, but they don't pull enough and they end up hitting ghost, or like they end up hitting post, right? That's one of the most common.
The other thing that I see that's really common that people just don't talk about is conserving your back booster charges. So a lot of the time, because there's a speed cap of 5 meters a second, if you look at your target and use both back booster charges, you'll be going at your maximum speed directly towards your target. But you could look beyond your target and use only one charge and be moving at max speed towards your target, and still have your other back booster charge. Which is huge. Those back boosters can make a massive difference. Even if someone is 1.5 feet taller than you, you can catch any duck that they do if you have your back booster conserved. If someone is trying to leech you, I do not care how far they pull to the side. If you turn around and look at them and use your back booster when they try to pull off of you, you can catch them. Conserving a back booster charge is massive. If you want to see a great example of how to use it, watch any front stack led by Zach W. A lot of the time, he will pull to one side and then use his back booster to change direction like 50, 60 degrees with a single back booster charge, because he looks directly to the side. and it throws off QBs so much. You'll often see QBs just appear to just throw the disc straight to his stack because he's so good at disguising where he's going and using his back booster effectively to get there.
For sure. We'll definitely take a look at some of the Zach W boosts. And
Zach W front stacks, and Zach W in general is, I think, the best high-level Echo player at using his back booster and conserving those charges.
Now, because I was just looking, I think Zach W just joined Odyssey, right?
Yeah, he did. I left Odyssey.
Yeah, you just left Odyssey. He just joined, so it's another plug for Odyssey.
He took my spot on Odyssey.
Yeah, plug right there. One of the best. One of the best right there. Now, one thing that, again, this is very, very basic, but I think a lot of people don't. Like, I've literally taught this, and there's people who don't know this, even though they've played for like a year. It's the fact that when you use your booster, it's the center of your view. It's not.
Yes, it's where you're looking.
So what you could actually do is, if you're going forward, you want to make a directional change, you whip your head towards the direction, or your physical body boost in that direction, and then you can go back towards wherever you're looking. Again,
and you can actually look beyond where you're going as well.
Absolutely. Don't. It's not like your wrists, where it's like you boost in the direction of your wrists, or where you're floating. You're not.
It is where your face is looking.
Absolutely.
That's also something that's very important on initial rollouts. I've often heard people say they struggle to get to a location when they switch to PE jousting for their rollout instead of using the ring, which is a good thing to do, by the way. You should always PE joust your rollouts.
100%.
But a lot of people say they struggle to get to shorter locations when they do that. So, for example, if you're trying to PE joust your rollout and you're trying to go to Pac-Man, for example, you can just go off of the first person, and that just makes it easier, and you can get there. But you can also go off of the second person, and then look back at your own shoulder, and you'll just go straight there.
Absolutely.
Look back at your own shoulder, use your face booster, and you'll go straight to Pac-Man. No matter how, it doesn't matter how fast you're going. You pull off and you look straight backwards, you'll go where you want to go.
Absolutely.
Well, not straight backwards, but backwards and in the direction you want to go, and you'll just get there.
Exactly. Now, one of the main things for that, I think, as you're mentioning about all these things, is the fact that this is something that comes with a lot of experience of how far you need to look. It's
very much a feel.
Yeah, as much as we talk of you're coming out of it's not so much a direct spot. It's not when I come out of joust, I need to go and look at that number, that number in that spot. But it's really a feel okay, this is where you are, this is where you want to go, so you have to figure out this is where you actually have to
and you also have to get a feel for your speed as well, especially if you're coming out of just a random stack in the middle of the point, you want to go to goal or to cover someone or something. It is very much a feel. You're how fast do I feel like I'm going, how far do I need to look to boost there? That is very much something you just need to practice and work on. It's very hard to figure out, but it is also very, very useful. If you get good at conserving your back booster charges, you will get 10 times better at catching people in open air jukes. Because one of the main things that I see happen, someone tries to pressure someone in open air. They push off of Geo. They immediately use both back booster charges. And then someone ducks them, and they just got beat. But, I am not a tall guy. I can catch tall people when they duck if I just look straight down and boost, if I've conserved my back booster charge.
Let's actually talk about that in just a second. Let's take a look at a second clip with
Sounds great.
With Team Slap and Echoholics. This
Dak
is
flying in from Team.
This is Doc actually talking. He's still here with us in spirit.
Perfect.
I believe there's some offense, and there's some failed offense, some dings.
Yes.
I believe they were able to eventually get disc possession right there.
That initial shot, I do not fault him for taking. It's a panic situation. The goalie's not ready. That's a shot you should take. But then when they start juking on the ceiling, that shot should have gone back. You can see there's someone back at double diamonds. I think they were at Cloud at the time. That person should have been calling for it, and they should have reset that disc. Then they get a missed 3 from the Echoholics, which is just lucky. They should have gotten scored on there.
Yes.
And then the Echoholics get a beautiful play because Slap double pressures the disc. They send 2 people towards the disc cross low. That person that was on boot should have been on a goalie block, on shield, or covering that post pass to cover that. Because the Echoholics just scored in a 2v3 right at the end there. You can see they have 2 people in bubble. They have Sir Captain Spoon on that cross, and you have Smooth Ride and passing to them. And you can see 3 orange players in bubble, and none of them were covering Sir Captain Spoon.
Absolutely.
And that's why they score, because they double pressured the disc there, and they had someone that's on the rim of goal, not really doing anything. One of those 2 players should have gone to cover that pass to Spoon.
Yeah, so talk with us a bit about double pressuring, because we see that happening, really often, especially at all levels of play, except for really, really high tiers.
Yeah.
The
The biggest thing is in Echo, or just in VR in general, you don't really have peripheral vision. You have garbage field of view compared to real life. which makes communication way more important. You will often pressure a disc and not even know that your teammate is also pressuring the disc. You always have to communicate. Every time you go to pressure a disc, say, I'm pressure, I'm pushing, I'm whatever, I'm fighting, whatever you're, talk with your team, figure out a call out, figure out a word to say when you are pressuring the disc. Because if you don't say, I am pressuring the disc and you are not, then you're going to double pressure almost always. Because no matter how aware you are, unless you're literally sitting there going like this constantly, you will miss things
Yeah.
because you have no peripheral vision. You have a 100-degree field of view, whereas in real life you have like a 170-degree field of view. It's a massive difference.
Absolutely.
It's just very important to communicate, especially on defense.
And what I'm really hearing is the fact that comms, communication, is what's going to change those double pressure situations.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, that's. I mean, there's some of it is just like some of it is team feel. You can have like people that always pressure and people that always cover passes. The biggest example of that is Ignite. Game is almost always the person pressuring because he's insane in 1v1s and insane at shooting, and he should be pressuring. So they sometimes probably don't even have to talk about it. There's like, okay, Game pressured this, and I cover the pass. Because they have Game who's insane at pressure, and then Jay and Ryan who are insane at jumping passes. So like they have, and they've also played together forever, which is the reason they're the best team. Okay, not the only reason, but one of many reasons they're the best team.
Of course.
But some of it is figuring out with your team who should always be the pressure and who shouldn't be. But when you're playing with people you haven't played with a bunch, when you're playing in pubs, when you're playing in a random private, when you're playing with a new team, whatever, you have to talk to prevent double pressure. You will not have a good defense without communication if you have not played with people. It just won't happen.
Yeah.
You might get lucky a few times, but you won't have a consistently good defense until you talk to them.
Absolutely. Now, in terms of, what you're saying, I want to make sure, again, just sort of to summarize, I'm hearing communication, very huge, especially like any kind of pressure, anytime you're pushing disc, anytime you're moving, just communicate to the team, unless you want, unless you play with your team a super huge amount and you already know where they're going to be positioned. And even then you can still calm. Or the other one is like you can keep your head on the swivel and constantly look around and make sure you know where everybody is. But, make everybody's life easier by
That's just really hard. Like, it is objectively hard to know where all 7 players are at the same time. I mentioned that in our first clip of the night. Like, it's you should always be striving to know where all 7 players in the game are. But almost no one, if you just pause the game and say, where are all 7 players in this game? Almost no one will be able to tell you every time.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not a thing. People will know in general. They'll know, oh, I'm not pressured, so I'm probably fine. And it's something to work on. If you can cultivate that skill, it's huge, but most people don't have it. Generally, you have each person on your team knows where 4 to 6 players are, and you won't know where all 7 are unless you communicate.
Exactly. Now, because of games like this where, as we're watching a replay, there's a mini map on the right hand lower side where you can see all 7 players. In game, enemy players don't show up past geos, so it's very very common where someone can hide, especially good like enemy defense like mids and stuff. They'll hide behind geos, and if you lose track of them for just a second, they'll have repositioned and hidden somewhere else. So,
absolutely, yeah.
So again, that's really tough in terms of keeping track of everybody. But the more you can keep track of people is, those situations where like, oh, you got the disc, you clear it left side, oh, someone just pops out of station and just grabs it, right? Like,
my best advice there is assume that there is a defensive player everywhere one could possibly hide. Don't clear near geo unless you are absolutely sure that you know where all 4 enemy players are, or you're just hard pressured and you have no other option. But in general, your clear should be as far from geo that could hide a player as possible. Like if you're clearing to tube, bounce it off the sidewall. If you're clearing high or low, bounce it off the ceiling. Like there's just no reason to clear near geo unless absolutely necessary.
Of course. Now, we have one more clip to take a look at where Slap defensive gets into offense. So let's take a look at that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's take a look at that clip.
A misread on that disc.
Final clip of the night, I believe it's Pally right there. Again, Alcoholics, just a great stop from Team Slap. They were able to, I believe, they're able to get disc.
I don't know. It was a great individual play by their goalie. I do not think it was good defense.
Sure.
And then it's just panic slaps towards the goal. That happens. You're under lots of pressure. And then the slap out happens, and I believe they recover and set up an offense again here.
Yeah.
But just right at the beginning of the play, you can see a double pressure. Right at the beginning of the clip, they got the reset. Right at the beginning of the clip, you see a double pressure. The goalie pushes out correctly, but you see 2 people pressure the disc, and the goalie makes a great individual 1v1 stop. Because there is no one in goal, there's one person shooting. That is not good for the defense. That is low percentage. Their defense their goalie makes a great play to get the disc and clear it, but they did not have a great defensive setup here.
Yes. Now
They get a good clear. They do a great job staying stacked to get this clear. It's not the best clear, but that happens.
Yeah.
And they get a continued clear through here. It's kind of a mosh pit. 2 orange and 3 blue. You have to send that. And then they get possession here. They did not need to slap that disc. There was 2 people there. They were a little bit yellow, but not super red. You can see 1 person on station there. They should have kept that disc and had those 2 people separate. I understand not doing so because I'm betting that person in front didn't get comms from the one behind, heard thrusters and a grab noise and panicked. You have to say that you're friendly. You have to let them know, hey, I am grabbing you and I am on your team in some way. Just say friendly or say grabbing or something. Because I'm betting that person in front didn't know the person grabbing them wasn't on their team.
They did not, because the front person blocks.
Yep. Yeah.
So,
yeah. Exactly.
so
you see the block. They did not know that the person grabbing them was a teammate, and that led them to take a lower percentage play here because they can absolutely grab the disc for a half second here and spread out and establish an offense. They still score here, but they get a little bit lucky that a blue stack that comes in now misses it, and they get it instead. They still get stunned, but they get lucky there. And then this is just a panicked clear. Their backfielder was in a great position and made a great read to get this, and sends it to people that are not well positioned. You see there's 2 people on Ghost. Sanchezi does a great job at recognizing what he needs to do in this case. He's on Bowtie. He should have been the pass option there because there's 2 people on Ghost and 1 person pressuring them, whereas Sanchezi is wide open. And he does a great job recognizing, hey, these people are going to be panicked and need an assist pass. So like after this back pass, Chezi goes up to shield and then he goes back to Bowtie when this happens. And right here, this pass should have gone to Sanchezi. And then those 2 people on Ghost should have split up and established an offense. But Sanchezi does a great job of recognizing the situation and putting himself in the best position to capitalize and gets this 1v1 with the goalie for the score.
Now on the note,
it's great capitalization on a not great setup, but they did the best thing they could given the situation.
Now, one thing that it does look like is the fact that the 2 people were right next to each other on like Ghost Pac-Man was because on that blue side clear, right, they just come out of it like from a stack position, right?
They did, yeah.
So what I think the issue, as you know, what we saw a few times throughout like the 3 clips that we saw, was the fact that it seems to be a comm issue where the players are not communicating like, oh, I got disc. If the back line, so for example, if the back line off that clear was, because they had a few seconds to chase the disc, right? If the player at this point was able to say, hey, like, I got disc or something like that, like, you know, that clear.
And actually, like on this slap to Ghost, I think you can see both orange players reaching for this disc.
Yes.
You see both of them sticking an arm out. They did not communicate who was getting this disc at all. I can say that for sure because they're both reaching for it.
Absolutely, you can see.
And they needed to talk to each other and spread out.
Absolutely.
So right now, that 1 person coming to post can cover them both. And Echoholics does make a little bit of a mistake in that both of those players go to cover those 2 and leave Sanchezi open for this push.
Yes.
Actually, no, I think that player might go back to goal. No, there's someone there.
No, the 2...
Yeah, no, they go to pressure. Yeah, so that leaves
pressure.
Sanchezi open. Yep.
They double pressured.
Yeah, even when there's 2 people there, you only need to send 1 person. If 2 people are in the same place, just send 1 person at them. Absolutely. There's no reason to send 2 to cover 2 when they're in the same spot.
Yeah.
Because if that person had stayed on shield or post, they could have intercepted this pass and prevented the score. Yes. They made a slight mistake there. But Chezi does a great job recognizing the situation there. Sanchezi does a great job recognizing, because as soon as that pass goes off, he starts pushing in, and that's absolutely what he needed to do there.
Absolutely. Now, in terms of some of the clips and some of the stuff that we mentioned for Team Slap and Team Echoholics, you know, what I'm really hearing in terms of Team Slap, one of the main things that they could be doing is communicating their defense, especially like who's pushing, who's staying. That can be improved, as we can also see with Echoholics in this position where they have a double commit because, you know, like, well, they technically didn't double commit on 1 person, but they double committed on the offense to 1 location, right? They double commit to 1 location, right? Which left Sanchezi opened for that one-on-one with goalie, which resulted in Team Slap scoring, right? Now, you know, based on sort of what you saw, you know, like, what would you say is, what would be like in my mind, is like the force multiplier? What would be like the easiest fix that you could say, or the easiest improvement for Team Slap, so that they double commit less, you know, that some of these plays are a little better? Like, what do you see?
When they're stacking, they should communicate who's going for the disc and who's not. When you're on a stack on defense, you should always either have it designated or communicate, I'm going to pressure disc, I'm covering pass. Because you don't need to have both people pressure the disc.
Mhm.
Even when oh, they're about to establish bubble offense and we got stranded on their side and we're boosting back, one person should cover the pass, one person should cover a disc. Like on Odyssey, if I remember correctly, it was always our front stack was generally Zeus Mamba.
Mhm.
And almost always Mamba would cover the pass, Zeus would pressure disc. And that was just like a known thing. We would do that. One person would pressure the pass, one person would pressure the disc. And you should have that established. And you should have the same sort of thing on offense. You should have one person that generally grabs the disc and one person that spreads off for a pass or a recovery for a random slap. Because there's no reason for both people to sit there right next to a disc. It doesn't help.
Yeah.
Like, you're both in the same spot. Like, occasionally it'll work out that one of you grabs it while the other one gets stunned because they stunned the wrong person. But that's not a high percentage play. You have to assume that your teammate is going to make the play. Like, have faith in your teammates. They are going to do the thing they're supposed to do. They're going to execute on what they're supposed to execute on. And then establish yourself assuming, hey, they're going to do the thing. Okay. If you always set up assuming your teammates are going to fuck up, you're not a real team. You're just a collection of players playing together. Like,
yeah. So
that's a pub mentality, not a comp mentality.
For sure. And what I'm hearing in terms of that comp mentality is those set roles. In my mind, they avoid like what I consider like pub pulls, like where you're on a stack, you're like, like last second, I want the disc, I'm pulling. Like when you're like this close to the disc.
Well, if you have set roles, you can have pub pulls be an intentional team decision. You can say, you are going to pull off, and I'm going to continue going.
Sure.
And you can have that be like, I'm doing this. This is our team plan. But you won't have two people fighting for who gets the last pull and who gets the disc. That's not a comp mentality. You should communicate or have established prior who gets the disc and who doesn't.
Absolutely.
And I would say it's better to have it established who gets the disc and who doesn't, unless it is a very, very close stack race. If you know that it's an insanely close stack race, you have to go as fast as you can. Whoever gets there gets there. Like, you're going as fast as you can. But when you know you're winning the race, even just by a little bit, have somebody that'll always split off. Because when you get the disc, you're almost always not going to have a shot because they're going to send someone to cover the goal. Sometimes you will, but you should always default to slapping the disc not towards the goal, but cross, high, or low, or back. A panic slap, the worst thing you can do is slap it towards the opposing goal, because there's almost always a player there. That is the first place they send a player to. If they don't know where the disc is, they don't think they can get it, the first thing they do is send someone to goal. So if you are panicked, you don't know what's going on, if you slap it to goal, that is the highest chance of a turnover of any location you could possibly slap the disc, because it's the highest chance there will be a defender there. So
absolutely,
slap it as somewhere cross, high, low, or back, and then have your other person always pull off in that direction. Or you'll have a backstack back there ready to pick it up.
Great. Is there anything else you really want to say to Team Slap or Team Echoholics based on these clips that we saw?
You're all cool people. I've met Sanchezi, I believe. Echoholics are one of my favorite teams in Echo.
Of course.
You're all great.
Of course. Smooth, always a fun. And Doc
Absolutely.
is on Echoholics now, which is always fun. He is. Which is always fun. That sort of
Gotta
covered...
love Doc education.
Oh, for sure. Now, we covered a lot of things today. There's a lot of like little pieces, and some of the biggest takeaways for me from some of our conversation today was the fact that, you really talk about how like go where the defender doesn't want you to go. Yep. And really being adaptable in the sense that, here's where you want, like you even mentioned there, like some of the first clips, was the fact that, hey, I'm on I'm on post, which is a good position. My teammate's on shoulder. Now I need to go start spreading out a little lower to give better pass options for the.
As far as that, the biggest default thing, I'm going to steal this straight from one of my my ultimate frisbee coaches. Offense is reactive. Defense is proactive.
Tell us a bit more about that.
Whatever the defense is doing, so the offense is always inherently at an advantage, but they're only at an advantage in that they can take advantage of what the defense is doing. Because the defense can take away options. They can take away certain looks, certain decisions, certain paths to the goal. They can take things away. But the offense can always look at what is taken away and go for the plan that isn't taken away. And in that way, defense decides what to take away. And offense then has to say, this is what's taken away, so we're going to do the other thing. If offense always does the same thing, then the defense will shit all over them. You have to take what the offense is giving you, because you're at an inherent advantage, because one of the defensive players has to stay near the goal. They have something to guard. You are inherently in an advantageous position as an offensive player, but you are only in an advantageous position so long as you take the options the defense gives you, because the defense is required to give you something. They can't take away everything unless you're bad. Like, you have to make bad decisions for the defense to take away everything. So look at what the defense is taking away and take the options that they aren't taking away.
For sure. Now, that covers a lot of really, really cool topics. I'll definitely be rewatching this again just to go over everything. Yeah. In terms of today, thank you so much for coming out and
My
hanging
pleasure.
out with me today. We had some really good clips. You know, I would love to have you on the show again. Before we finish out, though, there's a few small things. One is there anything you really want to plug or talk about in terms of what you're doing and what you're up to?
Not really. VRML season starts July 25th. NEPA season's going on right now. Watch Echo. It sounds weird, but if just you putting on an Echo stream in the background and not even watching it helps Echo grow. I don't care what Echo stream it is. Grow the game. You love it. I love it. We all love it. Just put on the stream in the background. Watch it. A viewer count. The advertisers don't know if you're looking at the screen or not. Just turn it on. It can't hurt.
Absolutely. And I think that pretty much covers everything. There's one little plug I have for my boy Billy Brickwall, which is going to be playing on NEPA on, I believe, Barracudas in like 20, 30 minutes on NEPA, on the Twitch NEPA. So feel free to check that out. We looked at some of the NEPA clips today with your AAA team. So, definitely want to plug in some of the, watch NEPA tonight if you are interested. 10 o'clock, root for Billy Brickwall as he plays, of course. But, whatever team you like. Beyond that, please join us on our Discord for some boot camp events. We have some training events and some fun stuff. You can definitely come check us out. And, see you everybody next week. Thank you so much for joining the show today. And have a great night. At least that's it, right? Anything else?
Yep, that's it.
Perfect.
That's
I want to stop now. Good night, folks.